Welcome back. It's a new season of the Red River Horror Podcast. We're at episode number 103 with special guest from the Preston and Steve show, Steve Morrison.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Steve,
you. Welcome back. We're so happy to have you here.
I enjoyed the first time a lot. You guys are the real deal. You know, like-minded horror folk are, we come out of the shadows when we smell the spore of our brothers and sisters. Yeah. And we always enjoy getting geeky and loving this stuff. So, and I would hazard to say that we're actually in a pretty good swing as far as horror movies go. So what better time to talk to you guys again?
Yeah, and not even like in a good swing of horror movies, even like horror events. So over the Valentine's Day weekend, Pennhurst opening up for doing a haunted house special. I'm drawing a blank at the place in Manioc. It used to be Mad River.
Yeah. It's the with the faux subterranean the murder under the It's great that they do that. I love the notion of the year-round haunted attraction. You know, and I think they go for a long time. Are they open now? I believe they are, right?
They just did a seasonal. They did like a 2-weekend spot for Valentine's Day for like a My Bloody Valentine themed haunted house.
I love that. Yeah.
Year round would be great. The only place I know that does it year round is up in the Canadian side of Niagara Falls. Well, even if you duck in and out periodically and just have, a couple of seasonal things, obviously our time is Halloween and around that. But I think even we are in a good area here. We have, you have the Bates Motel, you have Eastern State Penitentiary, you have Pennhurst. I mean, years ago, when Eastern State Penitentiary first started we were at Y100 and here in Philadelphia, and they had us come over and walk through it, and I come in there as a massive horror fan, and what they had was like akin to Cirque du Soleil, and I'm walking around, I'm saying, you've got a freaking prison. It's oozing desperation. Stick a demon in one of the cells, stick a crazed killer down this hallway. And then they adapted, and then they went off and running, and it's been phenomenal ever since. Yeah. And it's evolved over time, and it's getting like now it's broken up into more sections than it used to be, where it used to kind of be more linear. And now you can really take your time getting through the different sections of it. So, I mean, it's great. I love it.
Yeah, so we have a lot. We we used to do we call it the Cream and the Scream, where we would do I do every one of them every year. Go at least not everyone, but like 6 of them, and take listeners, and it was great. And I mean, I never. I think you guys would agree as horror fans. You go through and you appreciate it. I'm not screaming. I'm not actually, if someone rounds a corner and sees me, they're going to be terrified. And more often was the case that I would terrify the 17-year-old who got the job dressed up as Jason coming around the corner. But we have a lot of good. Creamy Acres in Jersey has like this incredible pyrotechnic thing and zombie paintball and all that stuff. It's great. I mean, that's my time, Halloween. I'm sure you guys are the same, correct?
Absolutely. It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, Steve, it's a feeling. It's like the ambiance of the season. There's something to the season itself, like October for me, and I know there's a lot of big Christmas fans out there. I am as well. But Halloween for me, it like starts at my wife's birthday, which is at the end of August, and it just goes through. And honestly, by the time I get to October 31st, I feel good going into November. I feel good. I'm just like, you know what? I am ready for the page to turn because I've done so much leading up to it.
No, you're spot on. So it's the exact same schedule for me. So I am prepping I do a massive Halloween display here at the house. It's an 1880 Victorian farmhouse up on a hill at the end of the block. So it's elevated. It's at a stop sign, on an intersection. So cars stop. And I should have had the pictures at the ready, but, fans of the show and just in general in the neighborhood. So we're talking about those different haunted, Bates Motel and all that stuff. So I buy my stuff through the places that sell to them. And so now mind you, I'm not like
I'm not going to end up on any ABC competition show for best Halloween setup, but I've got some serious horror stuff, and I light it up. And when I tell you, when I was a kid, I used to love the house in the neighborhood, the houses that would do anything, with the really sell it, really get into it. And so I love that. So every house I've ever been at, I do it up because I find the kids love it. We have a little girl next door, and I mean, I've got eviscerated bodies and with lights on them, and I have demons, and I have a grim, like a really demonic Grim Reaper and all this stuff lit up, underlit heads, all that stuff. And the kids love it. I mean, it looked like some sort of bizarre kid Studio 54 this Halloween, with kids lining up to get the candy, and the cars pull up in front and the people get out. And I love doing that for the neighborhood. They love it. And then I leave the same extension cords run, and suddenly the eviscerated corpse is a Christmas elf. and I just switch it out with the same sort of lighting pattern. But it is wonderful. Were you guys always, horror fans as children, or did you grow into it?
So, you talk about like the king of Halloween. Eddie's house was like a staple, and we grew up in Andorra. His dad always went all out. So,
love it.
You didn't just get to grab a piece of candy. You were going to get scared in the process. So he always had something set up. And one time he had like a wireless microphone, and he had like this mannequin. I thought it was him, but he had like an amp under it. And he's talking to me. I'm just like, okay, blah, blah, blah. And then Eddie, I guess it was Ed's uncle, pops out of somewhere with like a chainsaw. Like I just get like, and I just bolted.
It's the best. I mean, I love that you guys did that, because I had a pump with a long hose running from inside the house. You'd have to walk through 2 hedges to get past the door, out to the driveway, and back out to the street. And as the kids would walk, now as a kid, this is probably something that would be terrifying most people, but it made sense because I was a crazy kid. I put Caro syrup blood in a container, and they'd walk through, and I'd spray them. So by the time they got to the door, there'd be blood on their. Now, mind you, if it was a little Raggedy Ann and Andy, I wouldn't do that. I don't want to send the kid into therapy for the rest of their lives. But all of that stuff, they'd laugh, they'd look down, it'd be fun, and carrying on that tradition, is awesome. It was that big thrill of setting up something. People come by and they say, we never miss your house, or we're gonna, those kids will grow up and they'll remember this house, and it's a gift to the neighborhood. And as I'm setting it up, people drive by and fist pump, and they look forward to it. And it's a small thing, but I mean, people who get it and get the thrill of this, there's nothing better.
No, and that's the thing. It was Joe, it's so funny you bring that up, because that's what we always just called it, the haunted house, when I was a kid. So it was like it was just our porch, and we'd have a strobe light going. He rigged up like the 2 like Frankenstein ears looking things where the electric thing goes up, like that kind of science project type thing. But
dude, that's awesome. Yeah. So I bought, as a kid, the Dick Smith makeup book that was sold in the back of Famous Monsters of Filmland. And that's how old I am. It's basic, but I mean, it was like oh my God. And in the back, he described all these Lon Chaney type, stuff you found in your kitchen. And then in there, he talks about gelatin, and I learned about gelatin, and taking gelatin, you stir it up in warm water, spread it out on your face. You take the Caro syrup, the blood, the studio blood. And I was doing for a 10-year-old kid, I was doing pretty convincing burn makeup on all the other kids in the neighborhood. So much so that my mother got a call that I needed to ratchet that crap back. But I was doing some good stuff. I mean, you remember that. I don't know. You guys are probably a bit younger, but whether it be Fangoria or all of that stuff. I mean, this is what you live for as a kid. So. And here we are today, talking horror movies, and it goes on. It's so great too, because with things like Monster Mania Con and all these other things that occur around here that are just celebrations. What used to be something that was like, now, even right now, Hollywood is realizing that they're just dropping loads of cash into failing franchises, and you get something that comes along that's a low budget, like Megan or It Follows, or a movie that has a relatively low budget. If it hits, it'll make a bundle. So now they're all looking at these horror movies and realizing, hey, it may be the purest form of cinema, because if we get creative and write a good script, all these crazy concepts that seem alien now, engaging characters, forget whatever the peripheral stuff says, forget whatever the studio execs say, and do something that's inventive, like Smile. Smile's like It Follows, but it took off. Give people something that'll, get them a little scared, give us some solid horror, and people are on board. So it's actually, I think we talked to Kevin Smith about this. I think this is and he agrees, this is the next generation. This is the next big surge in horror appreciation. And nothing makes Hollywood appreciate something like a Prophet. So
that's true.
I think we're moving into that. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because like when you have like the streaming platforms like Shudder, and you have like, if you have what's the one that's free with a ton of great heart, Tubi.
Tubi is really good, and there's another one.
Tons of great stuff on there. Like,
what's the other one that is? I love Shudder. I think Shudder is doing great stuff. In fact, Eddie, you mentioned one of the things to talk about horror directors that I am digging big time.
Yes.
And one of them is this Demian Rugna. I believe, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He's the Argentinian director. Both his films premiered on Shudder. Terrified and When Fear Lurks. I don't know if you guys have seen these two movies, but they are some of the most rocking, aggressive, I mean, really thoughtful. Terrified was on Shudder, and I just happened to click it on, and I'll give you a little tease without giving it all away. This woman, again, it's in Spanish, and but I don't care about subtitles. It's great. Sure. It's fantastic. This woman believes she's hearing voices coming out of the drain in her kitchen, and her husband, of course, is, oh my God, what's going on with my wife? And I can't believe this is going on. And I love her, and I'm going to try to help her. And she's sure she's hearing this. They go to bed one night. He wakes up and he's hearing a slamming, and she's not in bed. And he goes into the bathroom, and she is suspended in air, going back and forth between the walls, slamming against the walls, being turned into hamburger meat. And he can't stop it. And he is arrested, brought down to the police precinct, because they obviously believe he killed his wife. So the interrogators come in, they sit down at the table, and the guy starts to go crazy. He's like, you got to believe me. And the one detective says, we believe you. And he says, we know that there's something going on. And so they go
I like that.
into the town, and there's some of the best horror imagery. This guy really understands how to build. I don't want to give you any other thing of the movie, though. I'm dying to. No. Terrified. And then When Fear Lurks takes the exorcism tropes, turns them on their head. And those movies where it just, okay, they're not going to do anything with this little girl. And then they do. But they do it in ways that are like, no one is safe in this movie. And it's just one of those things where if they had only done one thing at the beginning, the decimation of everything they love and hold dear in this town, like if you saw The Witch, there are moments in The Witch, for example. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with the movie The Witch?
Black Phillip. I love Black Phillip.
Oh my God!
He's the man.
My God. So there's the scene where she goes in and it turns out the goat is the devil.
Oh yeah.
And he speaks to her, and then that you have that same kind of thing repeated throughout Terrified and When Fear Lurks, and those moments that we as horror lovers,
yes,
I think you guys are probably of the same ilk. That give me the build, give me those cool moments. Give me that, oh no, because There was a movie I saw on Hulu, and forgive me for prattling on.
No,
That's okay.
No One Will Save You. Did you guys see that on Hulu?
How about that?
I didn't see that one yet.
So
helpless the entire time.
Take Signs.
Yeah.
Take the ending of Signs. And so I got to tell you, Eddie, I'm watching this movie, a woman in a house, farmhouse, and the aliens break into the house. I'm 80% through this movie before I realize there's no dialogue. You're not hearing. I mean, that's how compelling the direction is, how the performance of this girl is, this young woman, and the scenario is just built so brilliantly. And again, it's one of those ones that has an ending that, you know, where you dog looking into a fan kind of thing, where you're like, wow, man, that's cool. And we got, you know, listen, I'm of a mind that even crappy horror's still pretty good. I mean, you have to be so effing lazy in a horror movie to piss me off.
So that's not to interrupt you, but that's one delineation I want to make, because I think I say this to Joe, to you all the time. So like when Fear Lurks and Terrified, right now, obviously are the tones. I'll give you an example. Okay. So sometimes what I've done is I've come home on a Friday night from work, and you know, it's just like, okay, it's Friday night. I want to watch something, and then I'll put on. I'm trying to think of the other movie on Shudder. Joe, it has Xander Berkeley in it. It was the evil crap. I'm forgetting it. But anyway,
there's so many. There's so many. Yeah.
so then we put that on and we're watching it, and then it's super depressing. And now it's like, darn it. Like, I shouldn't have watched this on a Friday night because I was in the mood for something like Jason Lives on a Friday night. You know what I mean? So those two films you mentioned, are they, you know what's another one that depresses me? It Comes at Night. Like, I could probably never watch that one again. It Comes at Night.
So here's the deal. I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, but when you are seeing a director on his game, like this Demian Rugna, and I hope I'm pronouncing it right. You know, like, I just wanted to, like, you know, double high five this friggin' guy, because it's like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. Here's a perfect example. Eli Roth did this Thanksgiving. Did you guys see Thanksgiving?
Yeah, you had to see Thanksgiving.
Right. Thanksgiving is a loving homage. You know, it is absurd and at the same time awesome in its loving approach to slasher movies. That's why, for me, you could put that on, and that would satisfy your Jason, your let's just go with it, Terrifier and Terrifier 2. Damien Leone, another guy who is just, if you watched Terrifier, and there was, you know, All Hallows Eve is where Art the Clown first appears, but he is really, David Howard Thornton took over the role, and in the second one, I literally, and you're going to think I'm a lunatic, I was smiling and tearing up because it is such a loving homage to the splatter movies of the late 80s and 90s. And it's all practical effects. If they're doing any CGI in it, I can. And in fact, even if it's practical and they look terrible, I mean, the viscera, you know, anything that can be used. I mean, there's a hacksaw split of an inverted victim in the beginning, but Art the Clown, that character, and I'm like, haven't we done the clown thing to death? You know, and once you have Pennywise, is there anything more to say? This guy is so mimish and so twisted, and they start to build this character in Terrifier, and then you realize in Terrifier 2 with this actress Laura Rivera that they're world building, that this character is something demonic. Joe, have you seen it?
I've seen the Terrifiers, yeah.
Yeah, and Eddie, have you seen them?
I have, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you know what I'm talking about.
So that's
Go ahead.
Like so that to me is like a Friday night movie. So the other two you said, like, that's more like
Saturday night.
Exactly. like
right.
Because I love the slow burn. I love the intensity. Like It Follows is almost a perfect movie to like. I love that movie.
It's awesome, and why it's awesome, and again, so many of these others that fall in that range are it sets up a dynamic. I mean, that's why in the Shudder film Terrified from Damien Rugnan. I hope again, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name, but it is exactly that. Eddie is that you're in a house, that corner of the kitchen. We all have kitchens. We all have corners in our kitchen. There's something
they got
effed up in there, right there. I'm looking at it. It's like the scene in The Conjuring when the girls are in bed and she's saying, it's behind the door right there. You know, so you take something we're all familiar with. It's what Preston on our show talks about. You know, that's why he can't watch any of the Paranormal Activity movies because, you know, it's too much.
It's too close to home.
Too much.
Yeah.
The home or something that we're familiar with. The genius of the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre is that first brutal killing takes place in broad daylight in a hallway. I mean, you know, so anything that does that slight adjusting, you know, is wild. Now, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a perfect Friday movie.
Yes.
You know, any of those. The other ones are going to. I know what you're saying. Like. No One Will Save You, and Joey, I think you'll agree with this. That leaves you with a slightly, again, dog looking into fan think like, oh wow, wow,
very unique ending that you don't see coming. Really,
right? But it makes. I got it. A lot of people were kind of confused by it, but again, I don't want to give any of that away. But I think what we're dealing with is a lot of you know, whether it be Damien Leone or other. It's almost like. It's almost like horror is getting, whereas Quentin Tarantino was raised on Hong Kong, you know, and blaxploitation movies of the 70s and Paul Schrader films, and we have this whole great series of Quentin Tarantino films. We're having a lot of horror fans now coming into creative positions in Hollywood and or, you know, independent film, and I think we're getting a good rush of terrific stuff, you know?
And all across, I mean, Jordan Peele, the work he's done has been fantastic. And, and I keep thinking when you're talking about directors and we talked about Thanksgiving, like Thanksgiving was like, you know, first that teaser between the Grindhouse double feature.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so that was worth the wait. Then you mentioned Kevin Smith, who owes us one more horror movie for his Great North trilogy, which is Moose Jaws. I want to have Moose Jaws. Kevin Smith owes me Moose Jaws.
Yeah, he's a companion to the Walrus. Justin Long was a Walrus. I agree. Those are disturbing in the right kind of way, you know. And I think he's underappreciated. Well, did you guys see? I'm sure you saw. I keep wanting to say Berserker. It's not. In a subterranean basement, woman, effed up woman.
Oh,
lives.
Barbarian.
Yes. Barbarian is not a masterpiece, but it does so much right. And it again, you know, like It Follows, for example, leaves you for you to get through It Follows, and you're left with asking that question: what would I do? What if sometimes you're sitting out in a park and someone seems to be walking towards you. It happens with like purpose. Is that person walking over to me? Is that, you know, and It Follows preys on that, you know, that sort of Terminator Sarah Connor, wherever you are, this thing is coming towards you and it's going to kill you unless you hump someone and morally do the repugnant thing of passing that on to the next person. I mean, it's effing awesome, you know?
Well, did you ever come up? My strategy for if I was in an It Follows scenario would be to go to like Thailand, you know, prostitute. And that's going to guarantee that's going to spread at least like 5 or 10, 15, 20 more people down the line.
No, and you do have that's the moral thing you think about. I mean, what if you were to you know, but the thing is they build in that little caveat, which is if someone demurs from doing that, it goes backwards. Yeah, and again, you don't need a gimmick like that, but that was so firmly baked into It Follows. We were talking to M. Night Shyamalan, and he was blown away by that. Just that creative stuff is just terrific. You guys saw You're Next?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're Next is something I appreciated as I watched it more. When I first saw it, I didn't, not that I didn't get it, like I knew what it was, but I didn't fully grasp You're Next on a first watch. That took time, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is a really good freaking movie.
With You're Next, I was expecting it to be like almost like a Strangers ripoff.
Right.
And then it wasn't. And then it wasn't. And then it was like a whole unique story to it. And I'm like, all right.
It's wild when they give you, and they'll sink the hook, with one. Just her holding on to the hand, in the hand statue, and the little camera gimmick of the roll. Like I'm now under the spell of this thing, and then when the relative, the kid, is under the spell of it and is banging his head on the corner of the bureau, that's sort of you're now sliding down and there's no way out, and now we as the viewer in that kind of horror movie, what would you do? What do you do? Because that's the there's so many different ways to interpret. I'm a huge Batman fan. I love Batman, and I think Batman is the kind of thing that you can be interpreted. What do you got? How are you going to do it? Let's see. What are you going to do? Yeah. And horror is that way. Sure. What do you got? What how are you going to take this out? And I think that's what always we as horror fans are always. We're very optimistic about something. Okay, maybe the concept was good. Maybe you didn't quite stick the landing, but we're always on board for giving it a try.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's my favorite part about the genre and like the culture around the horror film as a whole is that like even though the material's dark, everything outside of it's all very positive from the people who work in the space, from the people who are fans of the space. Because like before this was doing like more comedy podcasting and stuff like that. Comedy's just dog eat dog.
Yeah.
Horror is oh well, everything's great. Like everybody's
in a way,
everybody.
I was reading, and I forget who who had written the article or where it was, but basically the conceit was we love to see other people going through this. We are removed one level. We can insert ourselves into it and pull back. It's funny because people will say to me, how can you watch all that stuff? And ever since I was a kid watching the Universal horror movies, my dad would always say, just as a little mnemonic thing, he would say, remember what you're seeing. If you were to go back 2 feet, there would be a man sitting there with a clipboard and there'd be a director and there. So if it becomes too much, do that. And so in a way, that mechanism allowed me to detach, but now I do everything I can to remain in the moment, to not think about that, to keep invested in a horror movie. And that, and that to me is the, I don't do something that's going to take me. My second biggest issue with horror movies, besides the laziness, is I'm fine with whatever rules you lay out, but play by your own rules throughout the movie. Don't just pull a left field lazy writing thing and somehow something happens that does not comport to your own rules that you set up in the movie. It pisses me off.
Now, which one would you put in that kind of category that's a disappointment?
I'm trying to think of a good. The last time I got.
There's some random watches I've done through like either Shudder to like wherever, and it's like, all right, let's roll the dice on this. You might get something where it's like very inconsistent, but it's very focused on like gore and boobs. It's like,
yeah, and listen,
they're great.
There's fine.
I do want a story at the same time.
I mean, Piranha 3D. Yeah,
exactly.
I'm totally down. And that's the great thing is that it's like even crap can be good. Yeah. What's better than a really well done crappy horror movie? Just don't give me don't be lazy and you're going to try to, I'm going to be William Friedkin here. No, you've got to, there's a perfect example, The Exorcist. Take The Exorcist, beat for beat, beginning, middle, ending. That there are scenes in that movie that are so well acted and so well lit. You know, Friedkin was a documentarian, so he knew how to make things to convey the reality of film and his shots, the cinematography throughout The Exorcist. Now, my mother took me to see The Exorcist. You know, my father read the book, would refused to go see it. We were in a theater in the balcony. It was in a theater in Long Island on a matinee. No one else in the theater at that time, and you know, I loved it. But I mean that systematic, you know, that Iraq, Max von Sydow, you know, Pazuzu, you know, the little exchanges, the noise, the silence, you know, the sound up in the attic, all of that slow build, and that scene in the basement where, you know, Ellen Burstyn's trying to convince Father Damien to do this, and you know, they're getting this austere light bulb light from above, and it just, I mean, it's effing awesome, you know, perfection. And so it's perfection. It literally, I mean, so it's a horror raised to high art.
And that's The Exorcist is, again, just a perfect movie. The acting, the direction, it scared the hell out of me. I saw it, and my dad took me to see it at AMC Andorra 8. There used to be a movie theater in the Andorra Shopping Center, and it was they re-released it, the version you never seen, and they added the spider walk and a few other things. Yeah. But if you guys don't mind, if I can rant for 2 seconds about The Exorcist.
I've been prattling on like a jackass, so please go ahead.
No, The Exorcist believer. Okay, so I wasn't going to see it.
I won't touch it.
All right, so I wasn't going to see it just because I love The Exorcist and The Exorcist 3 so much. It's just like, you know what, we can. I love those movies. So, but then the marketing got to me, and I'm just like, all right, you know what, F it, I'm going to see it. I'm going to go see Exorcist Believer. I have to do it. One thing I didn't like, and you guys don't have to comment on this. One thing I didn't like is they removed pretty much the Catholicism from it. They made
I agree. Yeah.
They made it into something.
Please, continue. Yeah, I agree.
It's like part of the thing that was scary is that this is in The Exorcist. This is only something that they find out ultimately that this is really only something that God can deal with, you know, through the instrument of an exorcist. With this, it's like they just threw everything. It was almost like they were trying too hard to say, it's just like, look, now all these other things can exorcise these demons. And then by the time the priest comes in, it's just like, it's not even relevant. And I mean, I guess I don't want to give it away, but.
No, I'll tell you, because I saw it. I'll tell you, I agree 100%. I'll tell you why. For so many reasons. First off, you know, regardless of where you fall, you know, I was raised Roman Catholic, but same. The scene at the end, where Father Damien has brought the demon into himself, leapt out the window, rolled down the stairs. He's at the bottom of the stairs, and his friend, his priest, comes over. I'm going to start tearing up talking about it. This man has just given his life because of his devotion. In ways, he's a little lapsed as a priest, but he's given his life in deference to the soul of this girl. He's at the bottom of the stairs dying as a pool of blood pours out of his head. And the priest says to him, do you apologize for your sins? I'm like, dear God, if you haven't cleared that palate with this, but to the priest, it's important that he does that. It's faith, it's conviction. It's, you know, it is these guys laying down their lives for the devil. There is a movie called The Devil, which M. Night Shyamalan produced it.
Oh yeah,
yes, he did.
In the elevator. Yep. At the end of the movie, in the voiceover narration, the guy says, "I remember my grandmother telling me, you know, if there's the devil, if there's the evil, that must mean there's the good, there's the God." And so, whether you believe or not, as a predicate for The Exorcist and Exorcist 3 Legion, which is brilliant.
Yes.
That's the true sequel, right?
And I, oh my God, I never talk in movie theaters. I have maximum reverence. Exorcist 2, The Heretic. John Borman, who directed arguably one of the masterpieces of all time, Deliverance. I'm watching this movie as a massive Exorcist fan. I could not believe what I was watching. It's one of those, I was so furious that I started commenting on the film, and the audience appreciated it because everyone knew you would have been more likely to sort of wonder if the Hindenburg disaster, if you're witnessing that, if that was good or bad, than you were. It was so resolute that The Heretic was a piece of crap that everyone was like, what do we do? How do we free ourselves of this hell? And that was just terrible. But I agree, Eddie, 1,000%. That's something you can't extract that from The Exorcist, and to do so is stupid. If you ever saw the record, the original, which was remade into Quarantine, they're trying to distill what happens to the body after somebody is possessed. Mm-hmm. And so they do like what Richard Matheson did in I Am Legend, which is sort of use science to explain how someone becomes a vampire. But they still kept that evil, you want to believe in evil. I mean, what's more evil than evil, for crying out loud? When he's that last sequence in Legion, when they're in the prison cell and Billy Bibbit, having a brain fart on the actor, is there, and he's talking about what he's done and evil, and how the priests were fools, and how George C. Scott's character is explaining the battle for good and bad and all that stuff. It's riveting. And by the way, to me, to do a bait and switch with Ellen Burstyn in that movie was crap. I mean, it was
in Believer,
a really cynical deal. Do you agree with that?
Well, yes, absolutely. No, that was, and Joe, I know that was something you were worried about. It's just like, I know this thing. Like, kind of, it was going to be a gratuitous. It's like, okay, we know it's Ellen Burstyn, and we know. Like, I agree totally with you, Steve. It was completely unnecessary.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
I was just saying, like, with regards to The Exorcist, that's why I haven't watched Believer. It's like, one, I don't think I'm the target audience, where it looked like it was kind of a rushed together thing, probably meant for, like, I don't know, people like my niece's age, like, but
yeah,
I was like, I'm not touching this. I don't like the way that these reboots have been done, like the new Halloween trilogy. I'm not too crazy about.
Listen,
this Exorcist is going to be a trilogy kind of scares me. And then that Texas Chainsaw that went into Netflix was
crap.
Boy, howdy.
That was bad.
Crap. So again, you talk about the Exorcist, Eddie. The scene with Karis and Damien on the steps. It's in the extended version. They make it a little bit longer.
Yes.
And he's seen and saying, why this girl? Why, and what is the essence of evil? And then Damien is down on sitting on the bench, at the bottom of the steps. And Ellen Burstyn, she comes in and she says, "Is my daughter going to die?" And he gets me every time. Yeah. But the priests are there. When Damien's trying to use psychology, and Karis knows this is psycho. He knows it's a trick. He knows the devil. He goes, "I want to let you know all the different personalities that have manifested." And he goes, "There's only one. There's only one." He met him. He met him in Iraq. He knows what it is. He knows exactly what he's dealing with. And he knows about it because what he learned through his faith and through all of that. You strip that from this material, and it just makes it a parody. And you got to go a long way. I'm not going to say it sullies The Exorcist, but you don't need to. I would recommend, for anybody who was watching this, don't go anywhere near it if you're a fan. It sucks. It's horrible.
Yeah.
If you want to see Linda Blair do a parody of herself, you can watch Repossessed with her and Leslie Nielsen.
Leslie Nielsen, yeah. But no, I those again. You want that. Sometimes they'll dip in. I'll tell you one that did it pretty well. The recent Evil Dead movie.
Actually, yeah.
Evil Dead Rise, the one that came out last year.
Evil Dead Rise.
Yes.
So here you go. Take this, and I'm like, okay, let's see what we got. The mother as a possessed demon, and they didn't hold back. Man, I thought, okay, they're gonna skimp on some of this. They went full bore. I'm not gonna say like I'm a fan. To me, it'll always be the original Evil Dead. When I saw that movie in the theaters, it thundered like I could not believe. And I get the humor. There is inherent humor, like in Terrifier, when you're watching this just carnage and this insane clown. There's the little pale girl in the second movie they're sitting in this laundromat and this bile pours out of her body, and it's there's your humor. In Evil Dead 2, they amped it, and I think it's a pale, version of Evil Dead. And then Army of Darkness, okay, when I was committed to, okay, we're going to go in the comedic way, and I'll buy on board this, but it's not, to me, it's not the Evil Dead that I loved initially. So this is the new way we're going, and that's okay. But this one was back to hardcore, the first one, and I thought it was solid, and it got better the second time I saw it. First time I was like, okay, and then the second time I was like, all right, yeah, this deserves its position in top tier Evil Dead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, I'm big Evil Dead fan, and me and Joe, I think, Joe, you would agree. The original is what we saw. Like, that's what we saw on VHS when we used to watch, movies in the basement. It was the original Evil Dead, and there wasn't anything like it. It's like, what did we just watch?
The girl that he had just given this little piece of jewelry to, Bruce Campbell, sitting in the doorway, cackling, laughing, and again, the cheapness made it work. The camera on a piece of wood being run through the forest, and the shots, and then in Tennessee, there's a couple of websites. There's a guy who's like a punk rocker who hallowed horror places or whatever, and he goes to the sites of these horror movies, and he went to where that house was, and that the bridge and all that stuff. And I mean, because it was low rent, it sold it. It made it, the branches, the whole thing, her staring in the window as they're doing the mind, can you guess what card it is? Or the playing of the audio on the reel to reel.
Oh, yes.
As he's describing. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I remember the thing that got me into seeing it was Stephen King they'd sent him somehow. Raimi had gotten a copy to him. He saw it, and he said it was the most savage horror film he had seen in years. And I'm like, well, man, if King is digging it that much, and he was right. I mean, it's. I think I watch it every Halloween. I mean, it's a must.
You have to. I mean, just the whole third act of Ash just getting wrecked.
and think of the brilliance of it. So since 2 is basically the remake with the bigger budget.
Yeah.
And I love Sam Raimi. I think he's brilliant. But to me, it was like, no. I don't know how you guys feel in general about comedy in your horror. How do you feel about that?
It has to be designated as like a horror comedy. I don't like it when you're trying to add it in like dialogue, and it's just not. Just don't do that. If you don't have the elements in place for a comedy, don't.
I mean, yeah. I mean, there are parts of Terrifier and Terrifier 2 where I'm giddy because I'm so happy at what I'm seeing. Because somebody said, "F it, we're going to do it. We're going to do it right." And for us, for we horror fans, and it can be subtle. It can be Robert Weiss's The Haunting, where you never even see anything. It's just sound, where you just go, yes, and that's just commit to it. And again, when you know, to use something as hackneyed as you know it when you know it, and you guys know, when you know a movie is hitting the mark, when a horror story is hitting the mark. And then for me, like Robert Weiss's The Haunting, I don't know if you've seen the original. There's a perfect example. Compare it to the remake with Liam Neeson, which is walls exploding and doors becoming alive and all this crap and bedposts, molesting. Yeah. And it's like the first one is far more terrifying, where the first psychic to the house is there. She arrives early, and the housekeeper, she says, "Well, if I need you during the night, how do I ring you?" And the woman goes, "Oh, I don't stay here at night." This kind of delivery, no one stays here at night. You'll be here. I mean, if that doesn't blow if that doesn't blow your spine out of your back, that's what you want.
Oh yeah. And that was interesting. Like when The Haunting remake came out around the same time as the House on Haunted Hill. House on Haunted Hill remake came out. They all came out around the same time. I was like, what's the timeline between the originals? But
I tell you what,
anything Vincent Price in it, I usually go for. And
the original House on Haunted Hill is phenomenal. Yeah. The remake is not bad.
Not bad at all.
It's not bad at all. They give it its proper. Now, there's one thing at the end where freshly minted ghost Chris Kattan is like, "I'll help you," But I'm like, okay, but you've done so much right up to now that I'm going to let you pass on this, But that's the original House on Haunted Hill was so well done. Vincent Price is sneering and repugnant and awesome. And, it has, I think, one of the great jump scares in all horror moviedom. You know what I'm talking about, guys? In that movie where she is tapping on the wall, looking for the door, and she turns around, and there's that the crone housekeeper, just right there. I mean, for someone who has never seen it, it will blow you out of your seat. It's just perfectly done.
Yeah.
So, Steve, to take it from, I guess, the Halloween season, all the great horror that we just spoke about, one of the things I was curious about with you, because I know you appreciate cinema more than most, so I have to rely on you for more picks for the cold weather season, because it's something that I've struggled with for many years, and I don't realize it until it's actually here and we actually do get snow. And it's like, man, I want to watch like a good winter horror movie. And nothing.
Hey, as it turns out, I've put together a list for you.
Yes. Thank you.
Now, you probably have seen some of these. Some of these you may not have seen. And some of them broach horror science fiction. But listen, and I'm sure you've seen it, but if you're talking cold weather horror, and me, I make there are certain things that are intrinsic to straight up science fiction. And when it's horror science fiction, I tend to classify it as horror. And so, all right, so we're going to go with the 1982, The Thing.
Yes.
John Carpenter, obviously, Kurt Russell, McCready, Wilford Brimley, Dr. Blair, Keith, David Childs, from the original Campbell story, John W. Campbell, who goes there. If you're talking about what the cold, what the snow, what the isolation, with that feeling, that movie is so staggering. I saw it when it first came out. There was a theater that had been split in two so that the balcony was its own separate theater. It was like the perfect movie theater because of the natural, decline. It's almost like a straight, before IMAX was IMAX, you had every seat in the house was a great seat. And that movie with Rob Bottin's physical effects that still, like, if you want to listen to Guillermo del Toro talk about his love of John Carpenter's The Thing, and they're pulling off this stuff that, I mean, Rob Bottin had a mental breakdown from pulling off those effects. But, you know, that line, "You've got to be effing kidding me," is how we all felt as we watched that. And Kurt Russell is just the best. I mean, coming off Snake Plissken and then that, it's you know, who could have done it better? My next recommendation is The Thing from Another World.
Yes.
1951.
The original.
Kenneth Tobey, James Arness is The Thing, the director Christian Nyby, but the most important element, the producer and scriptwriter Howard Hawks, who was one of the best dialogue writers ever. If you want to talk about that slow build, if you want to talk about overlapping dialogue, there's the scene where it's in the North Pole, same story, different, not the shapeshifter of the John W. Campbell story, but interesting. It is one of the classic scenes in all moviedom where they find this thing under the ice, and the scientists and the military guy says, "Okay, fan out and stand at the edge of whatever you can see." And they do it, and it's a circle. It's a flying saucer. And then this, so basically, you know, they always say, well, it's about basically a killer carrot. Well, this is James Arness is The Thing, and the way we approach vegetables on this thing's planet, they approach us as food, blood. It's a space vampire. And have you guys both seen it?
I have, thanks to, you ready? A callback to an earlier part in the episode here, Tubi. So
there you go.
My dad had it on beta years ago, but I never watched it. But I got sick, as everybody did, I think, this year. And it was on Tubi, and I'm like, finally, I'm going to get to watch this. What did you think? I absolutely loved it.
Joe, if you haven't seen it, so it is, and I think Eddie, you'll agree, it is smart. It's smartly done. Nothing is done that seems stupid or their progression. And there is a scene involving pyrotechnics this thing comes through the door. The power's been shut off. They're in an Arctic research facility. They're losing heat. They're trying to figure out what the hell to do with this thing, and they decide, well, what if we set it on fire? It comes to the door. They set this stuntman on fire. I think it's the longest I've ever seen anyone in a burn suit. And he's on fire, and he literally physically, whatever they put on his hands, he slices a mattress that sets on fire because he's so bathed in Zell gel or whatever the hell they were using. And then he, jumps through the window, and it's one continuous take. It's unbelievable. So that is another one that, is, you have the companion. My next selection, Eddie.
Yes.
And Joe, Dead Snow.
Okay.
2009. Are you guys familiar?
I am not. No.
I don't think I saw that one.
Okay, a Norwegian movie.
Okay. Medical
students on vacation in an Arctic sort of mountain area, very rural. They discover that a horde of zombies who were I won't go too specifically into it, a battalion, is now existing as zombified Nazis in the woods, doing all those things that Nazis do. Now, this is presented as a horror comedy, but it is a visceral, gory, insane, over the top, where you're just like, man, thanks for going for it. It has one of the great outhouse kills in movie history. and the zombies, the Nazi zombies, are terrific. I mean, so there's horror in it, hardcore horror and isolation and desperation, and one of those movies that makes you chuckle because it's like, oh, this is perfectly outlandish and I love it.
Dead Snow.
So Dead Snow, 2009. Here's one, Hammer Films. I'm sure you guys love Hammer Films. Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee and Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed and Horror of Dracula, Taste of Blood of Dracula. They did an earlier black and white movie called The Abominable Snowman of the Himalayas, 1957. Black and white horror film, directed by Val Guest, who was one of the big Hammer directors. Peter Cushing, Forrest Tucker, black and white, they go to the Himalayas. One group of this collection of guys, Peter Cushing is interested in exploring the area, the what's vegetation, animal life. Forrest Tucker is, they find out the legend of the Yeti. He wants to capture a living Yeti. So you think, okay, is this going to be a Harry and the Hendersons kind of a, Legend of Boggy Creek kind of thing? They take it in a way you would not anticipate. It is a very heady, brainy, so what if they're out there and they realize these things that they're hunting might be able to get into their minds and convince them of things. And that becomes what is this real? Is this not real? And it has and they very smartly don't reveal a lot of how they look until the end. And I think you'll dig it if you're ready for something that is taking something that you'd anticipate being just a straight up monster movie and twist it. But it's cold, it's snow, it's footprints in the snow and tracks and all that stuff. So,
so that's
another one, and I have just a couple more.
Oh,
Let the Right One In. 2000.
Really?
Yeah.
I've not seen that one yet.
Swedish. I will tell you right now, one of the greatest vampire movies ever made. It is because it takes all that stuff we've heard about in vampire legend and lore. So the story is Oscar is this bullied kid. It takes place in Sweden, in school. He lives in this condo complex. He meets this little girl out at night. It's snow. The cinematography is beautiful. It's cold. Everyone's bundled up. There's this little girl who's out just wearing, pajama bottoms and a shirt, and bare feet. And she's on the gym set out in the snow. And that's like the first tip off. And what we come to know is and realize is that she's a vampire. She's a little girl who's been a vampire, would ostensibly be Oscar's age, probably 12. And they moved into the complex recently, and she has this guy, Hawken, I think is his name. And this guy, you begin to learn the relationship. He's very paternal with her, but he is securing blood for her. So he's killing people to feed her. He happens to get caught in the commission of a crime, and so he can't do that anymore. So, but there's this. I don't want to give too much away because I want you to experience how cool it is. It's dubbed, but I mean it was remade. Matt Reeves remade it. Let Me In, which is a really solid version, but the original one is so good because, for example, the little girl comes to the door. He's in this. Oscar's in this little basement room that they hang out in. And she says, you have to invite me in. And he goes, no. He's being like a petulant, boy. No.
Yeah.
And so she comes in. Okay. And as she comes in, she's talking. And as she's starting to talk, blood starts coming out of her eyes. And blood is coming out of her ears. And he goes, okay, I invite you in. I've never seen a scene like that in a movie. And it's so cool. But it also has a pool sequence at the end that is one of the greatest scenes in horror. And there is a tragic, bittersweet end to the movie that makes you realize that the cycle that you see in the beginning is a cycle that will continue. And I'll leave it there. So again,
all right, on that.
But that's a good cold weather.
And the last final good cold weather movie. Have you ever seen Troll Hunter?
Oh, I haven't. I wanted to.
I don't know why I'm hanging in Norway and Sweden, but I figured I tried to grab things that you may not have seen already.
I keep forgetting about that. No, I've come across it, and I still haven't watched it.
Again, Troll Hunter. It's a mockumentary. It is it has humor in it, but it is. I sat and watched this thing and holy Jesus, this is awesome. Basically, a research team in Norway, they meet a guy who claims to be a troll hunter. And okay, well, they're going to go along with it. They're filming. Let's see what he's got. But we're not talking under the couch trolls. We're talking 5-story tall trolls. We're talking in the woods, out in the hinterlands, and the methodology of hunting them, the handheld camera documentary. You're watching this footage thing, how you catch or kill a troll. how a troll can be bigger than you might have thought a troll was in the horizon when it gets closer to you. It's really cool. It's cold. It's outside. It's snow. It's really on a limited budget, really good effects. And it's Troll Hunters. So I would absolutely recommend that one.
Very cool.
Okay.
So I gave you a few, and again, if you have not seen Let the Right One In, take that out for a spin, man. You'll really dig it.
Absolutely. No.
Yeah.
That's why I was asking, because it's like it's easy to say, like, John Carpenter's The Thing. Like, if you're a horror fan and you're not watching that in the winter, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, you're lying about being a horror fan.
But like, and The Shining is like one of the greatest movies of all time. So it's like, it goes without saying. So that's why I love this. No, so The Thing, the original Thing,
right?
Dead Snow, the Abominable Snowman of the Himalayas.
1957. Watch it. And I'd be curious. You guys get back to me and let me know what you think. Yeah, I think you'll dig it. Yeah,
I will. Troll Hunter. Let the Right One In, and Troll Hunter.
Yeah.
So this is perfect. This gives me homework to do.
Let me rank them your system, Eddie. Here, let me give you your system here. So we're gonna go. The Thing. That's a Friday night movie, no problem. The Thing from Another World, Friday night movie. Dead Snow, Friday night. The Abominable Snowman in the Himalayas, maybe Saturday night.
Oh.
Let the Right One In, Saturday night. Troll Hunter, Friday night would be fine. So, whether you're looking for fun or like wow, I'm a little disturbed by that. So I hope I delineated properly for you.
No, that's perfect. I like that.
Yeah.
So something.
What?
Oh, go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I'll tell you what might get into my like regular winter rotation, depending on how it ends. Not a movie, but this season of True Detective Night Country. Have you seen
I've been hearing things about it, and I've been hearing like polarizing things. Are you guys recommending it?
I'm loving it.
So
it's been creepy. It's dark. I'm like, where is this thing gonna go?
Joe, I like that. I'm glad you brought it up. I wasn't gonna go there. So the cinematography's cool. The setting is cool. Like the tone, it's everything that I love. I'm actually struggling a little bit with the acting.
Really? With Jodie Foster?
Yes.
I get the one woman who's more newer to acting. She's kind of, I could see she's a little not as strong as the rest of the cast, but the rest of the cast is really good.
So I enjoyed the first season. We are living in a time where there's such a glut of wonderful stuff. Like I don't know if you guys have watched the series From. It's Harold Perrineau, who was on Lost and was in the Matrix movies. And some, again, Stephen King, and I know King's has gotten a little tarnished, for whatever. But we'll say this is that a lot of the people I respect horror-wise have signed on to it, and but it was on Epix. I think it's on MGM now, or whatever it is, and you can find it. It's 2 seasons up already. It's from the Lost folks, some of them. I remember asking Harold Perrineau, I said, I need you to swear to God that this has a lucid ending. and he starts laughing, goes, I know.
Didn't you guys host a big finale party?
We were, when watching something collectively was something that was doable. Yeah, we did. Yeah. And when we got to the end of it, Lost, and mind you, it was years of great television viewing, and I loved it. But when you get to the end of it and you realize that Dharma need never have existed, that all of the things, these large statues with 4 toes and time traveling, and despite their constant assertion that it wasn't purgatory, it was purgatory. And all you needed to do, and I said this on air, stick a guy in a silver latex suit and put fake alien antenna on him, set him in a cave and said, we're from, Alpha 4, and this is a big lab experiment. That to me would have been a more fulfilling experiment.
That would have been a really good ending.
Then it's exactly because they painted themselves into a corner. It's like Twin Peaks. I love Twin Peaks. And then it became really clear, like they didn't know what the hell they were doing. And then they made Fire Walk with Me, the movie that kind of tried to wrap it up, and they did okay. But from on a horror level, guys.
Okay.
I mean, visceral, wild, creepy. The conceit is this: family riding in an RV, they're driving. They come across a downed tree in the road. They get out. They look up. There's a flock of crows overhead. They ride around. And they keep passing through the same town. They're like trying to, how do we get the hell out of here? And Harold Perrineau is the sheriff in this town. And he does a smart thing. He says he could tell them that they're not ever going to leave because of this dynamic that gets explained in the series. But he has to just let them spend the better part of the day realizing that there's no way out. And the one thing they have to do is by nightfall, they have to get inside. There is a protective talisman in which they go into it, but these creatures come out at night, and these creatures will look to you like somebody you may know or love, or just a regular person. But they come out and think of a cat playing with its food, and that's what they do. And I'll leave it there. But I mean. So if you're looking for something that's real, that's got some real teeth to it as far as horror goes, definitely. But I'll check in. I'll check in on the, because people are split. But if they do you feel it will follow through with the otherworldly stuff? Is it actually going to make that leap, or is it going to resolve with the? Yeah.
No, there's just it's not. It's pretty much all set that there's some kind of supernatural element.
All right, cool.
Involved.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
No, I mean it's cold out and I'm game, Joe. I'm going to see it through. I'm absolutely going to see it through.
There's something about that, the cold, the again the whether it be the blood or the desperation, or you've got to get inside. You're fighting multiple things. You're fighting the elements. You're fighting the all that all that stuff is cool. I agree. I love. I mean, in the thing from another world, those when they're on base and there's they've carved the pathways through the snow, and it's like you're inside, you're warm, you're watching it. It's just fantastic. So I will take your recommendation and check it out.
All right, and then if you don't mind, just because you brought it up organically, and then with respect to your time, we can wrap. You brought up Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks. So I was going to do at the end of this interview, I was going to do like a name game thing. And it was all just to literally get your reaction, like without knowing what we think about it, just your reaction to Twin Peaks. I am so curious about it.
I love Twin Peaks. And especially when it came on television, you had not seen anything like that. I mean, from the Piece of Pie and Kyle MacLachlan and the there was so much there, and David Lynch was taking you on a journey, and Sherilyn Fenn looking like Betty Page, high school hot, and all of that, and all of this stuff, the imagery, it was just terrific. The music, all of it was great. And then though, I think you guys probably had that same realization, like, oh no, they don't know what they had no plan. And so Fire Walk with Me is actually it gives predicate for a lot of what you see in the series. So it is a good wrap up. I'll say I enjoyed it the same way I say about Lost. You gave me a lot of fun watching. I would have preferred, in the realm of science fiction, Babylon 5 sometimes gets dismissed. Babylon 5, Michael J. Straczynski had a 5-year story ahead of everything. And it was a complete story with a real wrap up and a real ending. And so I remember watching that thing just for the CGI effects at that time. You'd not seen stuff like that on a TV series. And I'm like, this is okay. Season 1, this is okay. Season 2, the beginning of season 3, there's a passive little callback to something that happened in like the 3rd episode of season 1. And I'm like, wait a second. And then you realize, okay, this is much more, there's more time being put into this. So any of these things, that's why I think the limited series, that's why I think the 6, 7 episode, 8 episode arc doesn't place this massive onus on these guys to come up with 24, episodes and keep this thing going. Listen, I love Supernatural when it first came on.
Yeah.
Monster of the Week. That's fine. That's fine. Give me that. And then it got much more elaborate. Oh, this is awesome. And then when it was supposed to end like season 6, well, the ratings were so good, they just kept going. And when it's like, he's dead. But if we can find the Stone of Gabora, it's like, well, then no one dies. Nothing has any impact. That's my issue with the multiverse. Okay, he's dead here, but he's got a mullet on Earth 107, but it's basically him. It's like you're bereft of finality in that, and so that's that's the one thing. But you feel like almost like you're overly pissing and moaning when I think we're in a really good time for some inventive stuff, and that's why you guys doing this podcast is so awesome, and that you guys are a real deal, and I appreciate you inviting me on again. I've really enjoyed it.
No, Steve, thank you so much. And since we last talked, and we appreciate you coming back, it was in speculation you were nominated for the Radio Hall of Fame. Now you are a Radio Hall of Famer, so congratulations.
Yeah. Right. And if you want to talk about one of those things that doesn't follow its own rules, the Radio Hall of Fame defied their own laws and rules by allowing us to be in the Radio Hall of Fame. But no, it's an honor. It's amazing. It's weird to hear people that are contemporaries or people that you've long admired, say really good things about us. Our mindset has always been that we're, Eddie, you see people who get caught up in their own stuff and they think, my ass doesn't stink and this is, I'm on radio. You got to realize you fall somewhere between the community affairs TV guy and the weatherman. So, once you do that, radio is awesome and it's fantastic. I love it. It's become my passion. But to have that acknowledgement and that deal, and it's amazing. It is. Again, I will say, and not false humility, I'm still stunned that we got that. But it is. It's an incredible thing because our mindset is we are in 4th or 5th place. We're a little bit higher, but the second you roll over and don't work on it every day, then you don't deserve it, because there are a lot of people who would love to have, this stuff, and we've seen a lot of careers end because people just, I'm here, the hell with it,
right.
and then you're wasting your audience's time. You owe it to your audience to try your best and to be, if you were to watch me on the YouTube stream, I'm literally between breaks just keeping my energy up because people are not, we're not running a, radiology center in a hospital, but our charge is to get people happy and up no matter what they're going through. And, it's something you don't take lightly. So, but it was a thrill, and you're very kind to bring it up. And we don't know how it happened, but we're glad it did. So it was, it was very, very much a thrill. So thank you. You're kind to bring that up.
Thank you, Steve. Joe, I guess I'll give you the final word, brother. Sorry.
Well, I was just thinking, if everybody, when they run into Preston and Steve, they have to try and one up. I've been listening to you since DRE.
Right.
We got to skip Y100. It's like,
and then since I was a zygote, that's fine. The fact that, stop and think about it. They take their mornings or the podcast, and they take the time. The standing rule on our show is if you are actively performing a tracheotomy on a loved one and someone comes over and wants to say hi and take a picture, you do it. Because our audience is, my wife and I have a livelihood and a life in Philadelphia because of the people who listen to the show and people who support the show and support the charities. and are nothing but kind and supportive, and that familial thing is not lost on us. You know, and it is beyond humbling. I mean, it really it is an emotional thing because that anybody would do that. It means a lot, and I don't want to be hyperbolic about it, but I think you kind of have to be, because Claire and I, my wife, I mean, everything is based on this, you know, and it's you know, it's just wonderful. That's why this and doing stuff like this and doing podcasts and doing geeking out and going to monster cons and going around and, you know, and saying hi to people and you know, that's to be invested in the community well. And radio kind of allows you to do that, you know, you know, where you can be actively a part of the area you're living in, you know, and you know, it's weird sounding, but it's true. You know, you can there is a selective, there is a mitigated celebrity, you know, that is part of it, and so that's wonderful. But you people go, oh, you're just hanging out, yeah. You know, that's the biggest joy is having a real life and being able to do that as well. It's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, just so awesome of you to give us your time to join us here.
My pleasure. It's been a lot of fun. You guys do really good stuff, so I really appreciate it.
Thanks. And hopefully we can get you back during the best time of the year. So, October.
Yeah. I tell you what, the next time you do that, I have a setup here. If I knew before, I could actually call up on my screen. I have you can see my setup here. Well, here I forgot to tell you. Let me. I got my earpiece in here, but let's see if you recognize this little.
The Blob.
No, well, it's from The Thing, John Carpenter's.
Holy crap.
Perhaps if I held it like this. Right.
Okay.
So, right? So
yes.
the heated coil, right? And then the thing leaps up out of the Petri dish.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's what kind of, I mean.
So next time we do this, I will actually be, so my wife and I recently moved. It's the first time we've been out of one zip code in our entire lives. So we're in a different, so the next time I will have a little studio. I'll actually have an on-air light and maybe some stuff. I don't know, but some movie posters or something a little better than a wall.
Well, here, I don't know. Let me ask you guys, can you see? Cause I'll do some scene switching here. I don't know. Can you see that?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
All right. So I can do all sorts of stuff here. So here's some of my, that's a variation Iron Man, starting at the right, and then going across there. Another Iron Man. We got the Hulk Buster. Let me see if I can adjust here. I got my Godzilla poorly lit, the Hulk Buster. We got the Daredevil. That's kind of there.
That's the 2014 anyway, Godzilla, the good one. Love that.
Yeah. So listen, that I love that. You want and to talk about the kind of you know, stuff that just I'll get my wife will look at me like, "Are you really tearing up over this?" At the end of that one, when Godzilla gets up and is walking across, and everyone's in the stadium, and the chyron on the TV says, "Godzilla, savior of our city?" Question mark. Like, he did. He saved your asses, and don't you forget it. It's just awesome. So, but anyway, guys, I appreciate it, and thanks. I'm back anytime you want me. I really have a great time.
Thank you, Steve, very much.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.